Since 1934, Iowa's farmers have turned to the Iowa Farm Bureau spokesman as their trusted news source. Now, the Spokesman Speaks. Listen in and hear from leading experts on topics important to farmers and agriculture. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to this special three-part series of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. I'm Kaitlyn Lamb. On December 10th and 11th, Iowa Farm Bureau will host its annual meeting and county leadership conference. During this time, members from across the state will commence in Des Moines to celebrate County Farm Bureau and farmer accomplishments, including recognition of this year's Young Farmer Leadership Award recipients: Nate Hofmann of Linn County, Kaitlyn Porter of Franklin County, and James Hepp of Calhoun County. During this three-part podcast series, you will learn about each of these young farmers and what it means to them to be leaders in their local communities. If you're not already subscribed, be sure to follow the Spokesman Speaks on your favorite podcast app to catch all 3 episodes. Today, we will start with Nate Hofmann, who farms near Cedar Rapids. We're out at the farm of Nate Hofmann in Linn County, and Nate is one of 3 of our Young Farmer Leadership Award winners. Nate, thanks for having us out. I want to ask you about your farm and your farming background, but first, when I got here, I was greeted by the most enthusiastic, sweet little boy. Can you tell me about your kids and your family?
Yeah, I've been married to Johanna since 2015. She comes from a rural area. Her grandparents farmed, but she doesn't come from a farm herself. I got 2 sons, Jackson and Miles. Jackson is 5 and Miles is 3, and they're a handful, but they're pretty dear to me.
Well, we know that farm kids love to play in the dirt. I've got one at home, and he's always really proud when he leaves like this disgusting dirt ring in the bathtub after a long day of hard work. So what types of things are you doing with your kids on the farm to create that love of farming or that work ethic that seems so important to you?
My kids love to pick up rocks, and I give them each a quarter if we can fill the bed of the Ranger full of rocks. And so I'm hopefully teaching a little bit of work ethic there.
That's funny. That's one of the things that my kids love to do too. And they almost don't quit. Well, especially since you said money was involved. So they definitely don't want to quit for that. Do they have a sense of, if you ask them what they're saving up for, what they would say?
Mostly farm toys. They like to spend their money on farm toys.
So they like being out on the real stuff and then doing a little bit of carpet farming as well.
Absolutely.
So tell me how you met Johanna.
Johanna and I met on a blind date. We got set up by a couple of friends.
So a blind date, what was that like, just showing up to something like that?
I was a little nervous showing up on a blind date. I didn't have reason not to, and I was looking forward to maybe to meet somebody. And yeah, went on a blind date and been together since.
Well, you must have good friends then that know you too well to be able to set that up. Do they like to get the credit for that?
Yeah, they enjoy that they set us up and got us together.
Go ahead and tell me about your farming background, who you farm with, what types of things that you farm.
I grew up on a farm outside of Cedar Rapids here, and I farm with my dad and my brother, and we farm row crops, corn and soybeans, and we have just a handful of cattle, and it's a joy to work with family.
What are some of your fondest memories on the farm?
Some of my fondest memories are just being out with my grandpa, just learning some valuable lessons about agriculture and stewardship.
And those valuable lessons and talking about your grandpa, what do you think is the biggest one that he taught you?
I think patience. He taught me patience, especially working with livestock and watching crops grow, and just, there's a season for everything, and just caring for the land.
You had told me that you were homeschooled and then you went off to college. Take me through that journey from leaving home to getting back to farming.
Yeah, so my mom, she's an educator, and part of her requirement for us to come back and farm was we had to go get a college degree. And so I went to Kirkwood here first in Cedar Rapids and transferred to Iowa State and graduated in 2010, and I've been farming since.
So what made you come back to the farm when you're dealing with things like adverse weather and unstable markets and all those things that farmers deal with, instead of something that would be a more cushy 8 to 5 air-conditioned office?
I think legacy is really important to me. My family's been farming here for 5 generations in the state of Iowa, and I want my kids to have the opportunity to live on a farm and grow up in agriculture. And so that's why it was important for me to come back to the farm.
What do you hope for your kids? You talk about legacy, and with each generation, we know farming looks a little bit different. What do you hope their generation looks like when they're ready to take over the farm? What changes do you hope have been made to make the farm even more of a blessing to them?
I hope they make steps toward more conservation and more technology. I hope they can live in a world where they farm and they enjoy farming and they have a great opportunity to farm. I want my kids to be gainfully employed. If they don't want to farm, that's okay with me, but I want them to have a lot of the values that I hold dear and that have been passed down. I want them to hold those values dear and take them wherever they go in life.
At what point did you get involved with Iowa Farm Bureau?
I've been involved with Farm Bureau for about 15 years.
But it's only recently that you started to take on board positions. Like in 2019, you became the vice president, and since then have moved through different board positions. What inspired you to take on that bigger leadership role with the organization?
Well, my goal has always been to serve the membership and the industry, and I was passionate about it and found purpose in that, and I just chose to kind of get my hands dirty and be involved, and the county leadership of the Farm Bureau kind of got me started and asked me to be a part of the executive county board, and that's how I kind of got going there. I'm currently the voting delegate for Linn County. I've been county president, vice president. I've served on the resolutions committee. I've been on the marketers trip. I've been on the crops committee. I've been involved with ag leaders, done a number of trips to the state capitol.
In your application, your county president wrote a letter of recommendation, and he said, Nate truly embodies the mentality of servant leadership. So where do you think that mindset comes from for you?
I want to serve the industry and leave it in a good place for my kids. And so if I can serve and be useful and pass my farm and a good agriculture opportunities to my kids, that's my goal in service.
Is that service mindset something that you learned at an early age? Is there someone that you can think of that inspired you to kind of take on those service type roles and want to be part of something a little bit bigger?
My parents were always good about pushing me to volunteer. Whenever we had an elderly neighbor that needed a little bit of help with something or other, they were always encouraging us to do that or getting involved at our church. And so they encouraged me to serve, and that's where I kind of felt the need to be involved and to serve. So it's important for me to involve my kids in volunteering and getting them active and helping them be productive members of society. And so they're young, so I haven't really been able to get them to volunteer too much in a productive way, but I just kind of want to model that attitude of service and contributing to society.
So what have been some of your favorite Farm Bureau activities?
So we get together and have a membership appreciation event for our members in Linn County, and it's just a good opportunity for us to mingle and interact with our members. We believe we had about 400 people there. We hire the Linn County cattlemen to cook the steak sandwiches, and then we hire a local caterer to bring in the sides. It's just something we can provide as a little thank you for being members and a way to communicate with them. I really enjoyed Ag Leaders. It was a great time for me to get to know people from across the state. Great opportunity just to kind of increase my leadership understanding and make me a better leader.
What is maybe the biggest thing that you pulled from that? You said leadership understanding. What from that class makes you feel like you're a better leader today?
I would say just a little bit more confidence speaking in front of crowds, being interviewed with local TV, and just being more comfortable speaking.
And with all the roles that you've held within your county board, right now you're the voting delegate. Is policy something that you're interested in, or did it seem like the next logical step?
Policy is always something that fascinated me ever since I got involved in the organization. And in a lot of ways, policy is what got me involved with Farm Bureau. I like the inner workings of policy. I like being involved with the state there as a voting delegate.
Yeah, one of the things that your county president had said that the county has had some difficult issues that have needed some policy developed. Can you expand on maybe what some of those hard topics were?
Yeah, we live in Linn County here, and Linn County is a pretty urban county, and we've had a lot of conversations with our county supervisors. Some of them have been contentious over the years, but we've developed a good relationship working through some things. A recent success that we've had with our a county supervisor in a county government was agritourism. Our county zoning director came to us and wanted to develop a plan for zoning and for structure of agritourism. And so we were able to work with them and get a little advice from Iowa Farm Bureau and how we needed to structure that for agritourism in Linn County. And it was really rewarding to see our county government come to us and look for a little advice and a little guidance. With our county government, we work to build a relationship where we can trust them and they can trust us. And it's nice when they come to us for an agriculture issue or an agriculture challenge that they're facing, that they look to Farm Bureau as a trusted resource and a source of information.
You mentioned that relationship might have looked a little bit rocky, but you've been able to overcome some of those things to get at least an understanding or some things accomplished. What do you think is the foundation for trying to create that positive relationship? Because Linn County isn't the only county that deals with conflict with supervisors.
Yeah, I think being in constant communication with our supervisors, both when we need something changed or both, encouraging them when they've done something favorable. I think, constant communication and being willing to serve on any sort of county type opportunities that they ask us to be a part of, that we've been able to develop a relationship with our county government.
You had mentioned that you have done interviews before with like KCRG talking about the things that are important to farmers, but I saw that you also share a lot of those messages with local schools and even your own church. Can you tell me about those things?
I'm involved in a local church and we're here in Cedar Rapids, and so not many of the people that go to my church are familiar with farming, and so it's just a joy to have them out to the farm and we can grill some meat and just kind of have time of fellowship and chatting, and there's a lot of opportunity to share and give the kids a ride in the tractor or pet some animals, and so there's just something wholesome when people can come out and share some time at the farm with us.
For those people who don't have that farm background who come out here, what do you think is most surprising to them?
I think they're surprised that it's as much of a business and as much of a modern farming operation as we have today, how we farm. I think they're more familiar with, an older fashioned version of farming.
So you're only 15 minutes outside of Cedar Rapids, and while I'm sure that brings a lot of conveniences for your family, has it also presented any challenges when you're looking at that city farm life dichotomy?
Yeah, we live like 15 minutes outside of Cedar Rapids, and in a lot of ways it's nice to have those amenities so close. But at the same time, we farm around a lot of suburban neighbors, and our suburban neighbors don't necessarily understand all of what we do as far as herbicides and tillage practices or no-till. They don't always know what we're doing, and so it creates some challenges and some phone calls, and hopefully we can work with them and mitigate their fears about agriculture and what we're doing on the farm.
So you've had people calling you, or you've had to make these difficult calls to other people?
Well, we've had a lot of people call us concerns about things like beehives and flower gardens next to fences and trees and that sort of thing. And a lot of times it feels like our suburban neighbors just want to be heard and they just want to be seen, and they want us to be aware of what they're doing with their gardens and their bees and whatnot. And sometimes there's kind of some questions or accusations, but a lot of times once the dust is settled and there's really not been a lot of long-lasting issues that we've had with neighbors.
And switching gears here to some future goals that you had listed, one thing you said was to seek agricultural opportunities that align with your farm mission. Can you tell me what that mission looks like for you?
Yeah, I'm looking for things that fit with our conservation practices that we do on our farm, opportunities there. I'm certainly looking to grow our farm and grow the acres, but also grow in a similar way with our perspectives as far as conservation and our goals and profitability, and having a little bit more of a balanced mindset in how we grow and why we grow.
Tell me more about that conservation piece. What types of practices do you use on your farm, or how have you seen those conservation practices grow?
We've been doing no-till for quite a few years now on our farm, and we've also done some edge of field practices, some buffer strips, some saturated buffers. We've worked with some landlords that have done some things like bioreactors. So we've had a lot of good partners and a lot of good opportunities to increase our conservation on our farm. We've been blessed with some landlords that we work with that are very friendly to conservation and protecting our soil and our water. And so it's really been a fortunate thing for our farm. We're always learning different things and different ideas, but the idea is to just kind of keep our fertilizer and our soil where it's at so my kids can have an opportunity to maybe farm one day themselves. I want to teach my kids to value the land and take care of it and be responsible with it. I want them to give their kids opportunities and grandkids and future generations to care for the land and stewardship and value the land and build communities, especially rural communities that are thriving.
Another future goal you had was to continue to serve Farm Bureau membership. So what does that look like for you?
I've been through the county positions here and I'm voting delegate now. And so I still want to be involved. I still want to, answer calls of local media that are wanting to do stories. I want to serve in things that maybe people on the board aren't able to serve in, trips to the Capitol, that type of thing that I want to be involved and invested.
One of the things that we ask in this Young Farmer Leadership Award application is what types of challenges do you see for young farmers or the future of farming? And you had answered things that I would expect as far as tight margins, conservation, sustainability. But one thing I did not expect was talking about the health and overall wellness of farmers today. Take me through that.
So it's important for me to stay in shape on the farm. I look at the farming of my grandparents. They were a lot more active. They used their muscles every day. They worked hard every day on the farm. Me, I spend a lot of time sitting in a semi or a tractor, and I just don't get out and move around, just in my day-to-day farming. So for me, it's helpful to get out and to exercise and prioritize that and make it a big part of what I do. For me to stay diligent, it takes a lot of planning. I have to commit to what I'm doing. We plan so many things on the farm, our seed, our chemicals, our marketing plan. But one thing that I've neglected to plan in the past is my fitness and exercise. And so if I plan to exercise and I commit to exercise, it's a part of my routine. So one thing I do to stay in shape is I run and I check some crops. There's a lot I can't see when I drive by at a high rate of speed, but if I'm running by the crops, it gives me a chance to slow down a little bit, see what's going on, maybe walk into a field driveway and pull a few plants and see what's going on.
And in looking at your overall wellness, you've got a lot going on, obviously. You have all these leadership activities. You have the family farm that you're helping with. You've got 2 rambunctious little boys. So how do you find that time to achieve those types of wellness goals?
For me, it's about community and accountability. If I can work with somebody or work out with somebody, it gives me a reason and they hold me accountable. They notice if I'm not exercising with them or if I'm dining with them, they know if I'm not eating healthy or not eating healthy. And so accountability is really key for me, keeping my health and wellness in perspective.
Yeah, I could see where that can definitely help. I've heard that being referred to as an accountability buddy. Someone who can, check in on you. And I think it's always great when you can grab more people into that wellness goal with you. So if there's someone today who is listening and they've been thinking for a while, like, yeah, I need to probably take a little bit better care of myself, whether it's moving more or just small changes to my diet to make it more healthy. What would you recommend people start? Where did you start?
So I started small and I started with things I could do in the next, day, next week, even the next hour in some cases, whether it be if I'm going to stop by and get lunch at the local Casey's or gas station, I'm going to choose something healthy rather than
You're not getting breakfast pizza.
Well, I still get breakfast pizza, just not as often. And sometimes I'm opting for a salad or a wrap instead of something a little more fatty or sugar-filled.
It's all about balance.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Along the lines of health, as part of this award, you are given money to grant to another organization of your choice. Can you tell me about the organization that you chose?
Yeah, I chose the organization called Toothbrushers and Balaam's Donkey. And what they do is they focused on dental care among care facilities, especially for those with cognitive deficiencies. I had a livestock injury in 2021 that cost me 3 of my teeth. And so I just realized how important dentistry is to overall health. I just want to be a part of that.
That's quite the story. That's not what I was expecting at all.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to ambush you with that.
No. So tell me a little bit more about this injury, not to give you flashbacks to a terrible time.
So in 2021, I was tagging a newborn calf, and the cow got me down and knocked out 3 of my teeth. And through that process and getting, fake replacement teeth, I realized how important dentistry is to overall health and just well-being in general.
It was not an organization that was on my radar, so it was really interesting to read more up on all of the great things that they're doing. What an interesting connection, though. So you've had all of these great experiences, both through, Farm Bureau, on your farm, in your personal life. What do you see coming next?
I like to bring along other leaders, introduce the other young farmers into Linn County Farm Bureau and bring them along and allow them some of the opportunities and maybe some of the challenges that I've been dealing with over the years.
So what do you think is the best way to do that, to recruit these people to want to hold a leadership position?
A lot of times it seems like it just takes an invitation, just kind of showing them what we do and why it's important, and it gets them involved and interested in the organization, and hopefully they stay and take leadership roles. I feel like the work we do at Farm Bureau matters. It matters for the people, for the members, for the agriculture industry.
I really appreciate Nate's perspective in not shying away from making connections with people who have questions about agriculture, whether within his church or local government. Advocates like him make our farming communities even stronger. That's it for today's podcast episode. Remember to tune in Thursday, December 5th to hear from our second Young Farmer Leadership Award winner, Kaitlyn Porter. Also, registration is open for Iowa Farm Bureau's Young Farmer Conference, which will be held January 17th and 18th at the Community Choice Convention Center in Des Moines. This event brings together 500 young farmers, ages 18 to 35, from across the state for networking, learning, and of course fun. You can register by contacting your County Farm Bureau office. Additional details can be found at iowafarmbureau.com. Thank you for doing the work that inspires everything we do here at the Iowa Farm Bureau. And thanks for listening to the Spokesman Speaks.
Thank you for listening to the Spokesman Speaks, a podcast by Iowa Farm Bureau. Check out more podcast episodes at iowafarmbureau.com/podcast. You can also find and subscribe to the Spokesman Speaks podcast in the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other popular podcast apps. We appreciate your ratings and reviews, and we welcome you to email us your feedback at podcast@ifbf.org.